morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Jon Witt, and this is a Hatha yoga class. So I use mobility exercises to help warm up the body. So that not classic yoga is all that I'm using. And if you found it was irritating to move, I really believe in classic techniques. Like, for instance, if I were moving your head or your neck, you may want to just hold it like a static position as opposed to moving the head eclectically that I do sometimes, just as an example. So I hope the classes have been helping you. I've been enjoying teaching online. You could always send me a message if there's things that you'd like to see or you'd like me to address something. I just made a video on supination of the feet. So if you had high arches, you can look for that video online. All my classes, these live classes, we're uploading them to my YouTube channel. So you can check them out and you can take notes of, because some classes will work better than others. And you know, if you had 5 or 6 classes that really helped you, I think it's better than just doing one class that you really like is good. But ultimately, as you practice more, diversity will be really helpful. You know, I've had that too, where I've studied with a specific yoga style, and I felt like, oh, this is the elixir of life, and that I could just continue to do this my whole life. But you'll notice with any kind of method, most methods, they're very good, but they are missing things. You know, like think of like rock climbing. You know, rock climbing is a very great thing on many different levels. You can get incredibly strong. But there are things missing from it, just as an example, that you could use other things to help yourself. So how we're going to start today is just in a standing position. And then in standing, I'm just going to be coming up on my toes. I'm going to lift the heels. So I'm hugging my shins into the middle. And then I'm slowly lowering the heels. And then I'm going to come back up on the toes. And then lowering the heels, nice and slow. Coming up. Many bones of the feet. So if you have tightness in your body, often comes from the feet. So you can press through the toes, you can lift the heels. If you prefer just a static hold, of course you could do that. It's just the lowering is a coordination. You know, it's just a basic thing. Like, think of like a push-up. We think of it, a push-up, if you don't have a lot of strength, it's just based in strength, right? But there's a coordination to it. So you know, as you get older, it's very good to stay coordinated. So you're going to lower the heels, and then I'm going to take the arms into a cactus position. I'm just going to open and close the hands just for circulation. And then as I'm moving my hands into a grip position, right? Very good for the hands to form. I'm going to open the hands. I'm going to squeeze in. Not incredibly tight, but just getting the bones again of the hands to move. A little bit different, kind of similar to what we were doing for the feet. Then you can open the hands, and you can keep the arms here. So if you had a shoulder injury, something like this is probably going to be easier than taking the arms overhead. But I'm going to take my arms up overhead and try to get my shoulders up towards my ears. So really reaching up through the arms. And then I'm going to take the arms back into a cactus position. I can open and close the hands again, right? I'm going to take the arms up overhead, really reaching up through the arms. I could come up on the toes if I wanted to. I could stay down with the heels. I'm going to lower the heels, take the arms back to cactus, open and close the hands a few times, then taking the arms back up overhead. Try to get the shoulders up to the ears. This time, just bend the knees a little bit. So when you keep your hips, when you keep your torso in line with the hips, right, it's more traction in the spine. You know, if you're pitching forward, that's okay. It's just, you know, if you keep yourself in line with your pelvis, like I said, you'll get more traction in your back. So come back up onto the toes with the heels. Really reach up out of the arms. And then exhale, lower the heels. Exhale, lower the arms. And you're just going to side bend to the right side. So you're just leaning to the right. Keep the head neutral initially. And then if it's okay, you can move your head towards your right shoulder. Just a basic side bend. I'm lifting through the left side. You know, you might find going to each side has its own set of benefits. You know, for me, this is very good for my left hip, you know, into my side and around my waist. and then you can bring yourself up. And then when you go to your left, you feel more of a stretch on the right side. So, depending on what hand you are in terms of dominant side, you'll feel more of a stretch on one side more than the other in different ways. So again, I can let the head kind of hang. I could also bring the head. I'm actively, on days that I feel good, I'm going to actively move my head towards my left shoulder, but controlled. Like, there's days that I can get bring yourself up. There's days that I can get my head to my shoulders, but I'm never really like, I have to do that. I'm just going that far if my body allows me to do that. And there's days that it's not, and I'm not forcing myself to do that. So I'm just going to be moving a little bit with my arms. So I'm just swaying, just getting the arms to move. You'll notice, if you can, I'm lifting my heel up off the floor. So I'm lifting my heel, the opposite heel, off of the floor. Especially if you got something going on in your knees, you could do that. You can make it more of a rotation. So I'm moving my head as I'm moving my torso, and I'm moving my arms. And this, might not be something that you can do. So if I couldn't do this, I go back to what I was using earlier, and that was, the cactus position with the arms and taking the arms up overhead. Super basic, but letting the arms just be relaxed. And if you notice that when you're walking, your arms don't really swing very well, or when you run, they're a little stiff, these are really great for that. But I'm just going to come back into the middle, and when I'm in the middle, I'm just going to turn just so that you can see me more. This can be another great thing for the arms, is I'm just going to be bending the knees as if I'm jumping, and then I'm going to push through the legs to let the arms swing. So I'm just pushing through the feet, bending the knees, allowing my arms to swing. And just, I say this often, if you're, when you're learning things for the first time, and you're not good at them, you probably try harder than you really need to. So just relax. Doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're really trying hard, there's a chance you could get frustrated. There's a chance that you could get hurt, right? So obviously that's not a good thing. So just like jumping, right? I'm bending the knees, pushing through the legs, and that's what's moving the arms. I can use some effort in my arms, which I am, but I can generate the motion of the arms from my lower body, right? And then you can come back into the middle. So when you're in the middle, just because I have a good wall behind me, and I'm not always having the class with this wall, I'm going to go up against the wall with my back. My feet are forward, my knees are bent. Could be a small bend in my knees. Very corrective of posture, this simple position. I use this often with people that I work with privately. So I'm going to take the arms into a cactus position. So with my arms at cactus, I'm trying to keep my ribs from moving away from the wall. So if I can keep my ribs in, it'll help stretch out my chest and my shoulders more. So if you're doing this for time, it's good to move the weight around, right? Say you really want to get to like 2 minutes with something like this, you can move the weight around. So take a couple deep breaths, and then bring the arms down. And then with the arms down, I'm going to lift my heels up off the floor. So I'm in this position. So just kind of finishing off the legs a bit more, just so that I'm stretching them, or that I'm preparing you to do more physical things with your lower body. So I'm going to lower my heels and then standing myself back up. And then just bringing my feet back to the wall. Not all the way to the wall, but close enough to the wall. And then I'm just standing at the wall. So just standing. Doesn't look like a lot, but if you haven't done this in a while, you might see that your body's a little skewed. Nothing to be concerned about, but just standing at the wall, you might be like, wow, my one hip or my one shoulder isn't touching the wall, and that's okay. It's just, as you're standing here, you might see that you're turned a little bit, or often with an older practitioner, the hips are too far forward. So with this, you're just pulling the hips into the wall, which is so good if that's your habit. If your habit is your hips are too far forward, you're just pulling the hips back in space, which will help. And then I'm just going to relax the arms. I'm going to stay at the wall, but I'm going to do a warrior two. So my feet are, in a wide stance. I'm going to turn my right foot out. And as my right foot's turned out, I'm going to take my arms out. I'm going to bend my right knee. And then as I bend my right knee, in these types of positions, you're trying to get your knee to be over your ankle, and keeping that. So if you had flat feet, the knee would fall in, right? You have tight adductors on the inside of your thigh, you'd start to see that the knee would fall in, right? You sit on the floor and your knees are very high, right? The adductors are tight, and that's what brings the knees up. I'm going to bring my right forearm on my right thigh. I'm going to lean up against the wall. And then as I'm up against the wall, I'm going to take the left arm up. I'm just going to be moving the arm around in space. So when you see a yoga ad, it's just a still picture. But for people that have really, really tight shoulders, I highly recommend moving the arm in space. Not frantically, right? Just taking the arm, bringing it forward, pushing through the heels of my feet, leaning up against the wall, adjusting myself. Then I'm going to take the left arm back in space. I'm going to come back up into a warrior two. So try to get your tailbone underneath you, and you'll feel your abdomen working, right, to help support the position. Then you'll straighten the right leg out, and you can take the arms down. And I'm just going to turn the right foot in. So just step the feet back in neutral. It's good to adjust the feet, right? Take the feet out wide again. As you take the feet out wide, I'm going to turn my right foot in, turning my left foot out. You feel like you're too close to the wall, you're too close to the wall. You feel like you're falling into the wall, you're too far away from the wall. Take the arms out to the height of the shoulders, bend the left knee, and then push the thighs apart. I often think of like if you had some Therabands right around your hands, right? You're expanding in space in terms of these positions. So the tailbone is down, the pubic bone's lifting up. The wall is really great. So if you find, you've always done your yoga poses in the middle of the room, it can quite be informative in terms of doing this type of position, because you'll see like, oh yeah, I could correct myself. The wall is a very corrective tool. So you could bring the left forearm on the left thigh, the right hand could be on the hip always. I'm leaning up against the wall if I need to stretch more. I'm away from the wall if it's overwhelming, right? I'm going to take the arm up towards the ceiling and then possibly bringing it forward. Following the arm with the eyes is very good for, training the eyes, retraining the eyes. So I'm going to take the arm back in space, right? And then I'm going to bring it forward. So I'm looking to the hand, leaning up against the wall. And then taking the right arm back, bringing myself back to here, and then bringing myself back up, and then turning the left foot in, and then just stepping the feet back into a neutral position. So just in neutral, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my body to the right, but I'm trying to keep my chin in line with my chest. So I'm twisting, but I want to be twisting from my torso, not from my head yet, not from my eyes. I'm just twisting or turning my upper body. And if your pelvis is turning as well, it's okay. It's just if you want more leverage, we keep that hip back. Now, if you wanted to twist more, then you could turn the head, you could turn the eyes. Then I'm going to turn forward, and then I'm going to twist to the left. So I'm keeping my chin in line with my sternum, and it's a way deeper twist this way, because you're moving from an area in your back that may not be twisting as much as we think it is. Then, of course, you could turn the head, right, to get yourself to twist a little bit more. Tailbone's underneath you. Right? I'm a person that I use my lower back in standing more than I really need to. Like I have a little bit of sway in my back. And then you can turn forward, and then you can release the arms. Just go back into that side bend again. Go to the right. Lift yourself up away from the floor here. Lift through the rib cage. Let the head tilt to the right shoulder. And your hand might be cramping or whatever, moving. But let's say your right side is getting pinched. Still, pick up more on that side. You don't have to fold in half. when people do side bending, they'll keep opening up to the same place. You can bring yourself back up. Like, I'll see people and they're doing the pose the same way. So you want to find different areas that you're manipulating as opposed to always going to where you're, like if you keep folding a piece of cardboard, you keep moving it, folding it, it tears. Stretching is some of that where you're manipulating the tissues, you're pulling it apart, but it shouldn't tear apart. So try to pick up more through the right side, let the head tilt to the left shoulder, and then bringing yourself back up, and then you're back to standing. So I'm going to go back to the wall sit. So I'm going to have my back up against the wall. I'm going to bring my feet forward, and then with my feet forward, I'm going to bend my knees. I'm going to take my arms into a 90-degree angle, just in case you didn't want to take your arms up into the cactus position. So just lift the 10 toes up off the floor, but just lower the big toes. Then lift the big toes. All toes are lifting here, but I'm just isolating the big toes coming down and then up and lowering just the big toes and then back up. Really, really good for flat feet. Those of you that have bunions, very good for bunions. Lower the big toes. Lift the big toes. Lower the big toes. It's a good distraction too. The more you use your feet, the easier it is to be here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lift the heels like we did in the first set. So as I'm lifting the heels, it's lifting the arches of the feet. So keep moving back up against the wall with your back, and then lower your heels. Maybe you already came out, right? Bring yourself back up. Stand back up against the wall, just neutral, right? So I'm just here, just standing, and if your head's not at the wall yet, just try to move it back when you can. And then just when because some of you probably are a bit hunched, that's a common thing that I see with people, but just move the head back towards the wall and then just let it relax. But over time, you should be able to get the head back enough where you could feel your hair touching the wall, and then over time, it's your skull. So I'm just going to take my stance into a wide position. I'm going to do a triangle at the wall. But when we do a triangle, because we did a side angle might work better for you. A triangle is going to be probably more of a stretch for you. So my back foot's at 45, my right foot's turned out. I'm going to take the arms out. I'm pulling my right hip back enough, not overly pulling that back. But then as I'm up against the wall, I can take my left arm up. I'm moving into the wall, I'm pushing through my right foot. So the toe exercises that you were using before is a really great way so you can press through the big toes, you can lift through the arches, and you can turn. I say this all the time, be high up on the leg, and that offers a different kind of benefit. You get lower, it does add a different leverage. So it can be good as well. There's other ways to do this, right? But push strong through the right foot. Again, when you feel like, I need to come out, you come out. Bring yourself up. Turn the right foot in. Turn the left foot to the left. Take the arms wide. Reach to the left. Really go out to the left. Then you could grab the left shin or the foot. The right arm is up. And I'm turning towards the wall with my upper body. So when I do photographs, stuff like that, I do a sequence like this. Really basic, but people want to see good looking poses. They want to see that you have good positions if you're a yoga teacher. And rightfully so, your practice should look good. But if it's so rigid that you have good looking poses but you feel like a wreck, then you'd want to do your yoga differently, right? You wouldn't want to be I know a lot of people that have very good looking yoga, but they're suffering in their body from it. So turn towards the right hand, then push through the left foot, bring yourself up, and then you're turning the left foot in, and then you're just bringing the feet back to neutral. So because we have the wall, I'm going to stretch out my quadriceps, but I'm going to strengthen them before I do that. So my left foot is going to be coming in. I'm going to try to touch the foot to the hand. So just grab the shin at first. So a passive stretch is very, very good. That's what we're going to start with. but I'm doing this because I know some people will really struggle with this. But you could hold the foot, that's easy for you. You can hold the foot with both hands, and then you can push through the right foot. And then I'm going to bring the left foot down, and then I'm going to take the right foot up. But switch sides, right, if you need the wall. So hold the shin, hold the foot, and pull with your hands if you can for a few seconds, but then also relax. You know, someone that's really tight, they're going to need more leverage. And those of you that are, you know, flexible, you don't really need it, in my opinion. I mean, you could certainly use it if you want it. But someone that's really tight, I'm asking them to pull, almost like pulsing. So bring the right foot down, and we're going to go back to strengthening, but then also stretching it out. So my left foot's going to be lifting up to my foot, and then I'm going to bring it down, and then I'm going to take it up again. So squeezing in. If you're not running, your hamstrings are probably pretty weak. Your left foot's down, your left leg is up. You can get stronger in your hamstrings with a lot of like classical back bending, like bridge and wheel. But if you're not doing that, those positions, there's very easy ways to help get the hamstring strong. It's a neglected muscle, right? But I'm going to lift the foot up. I'm going to hold it again. I'm going to stretch it out. And if you couldn't sit on the floor on your knees and you pose like Virasana, you're bow-legged, that can be a really hard position. If you have very high arches, that's a very high position. So this is probably better for someone that has supination in their foot. So you can bring the left foot down, and then I'm going to take the right foot up. I'm going to lift it towards my hand. I'm really squeezing in. And if it cramps, it's a sign of weakness. It's okay. It cramps for me sometimes, right? You can bring the foot down. I'm going to take it up, lifting it up, bringing it down, taking it up, and bringing it down. And then one more time, I'm going to take it up. And then I'm going to hold the foot. If you can hold the foot, it's a greater stretch. Not that it's better, but it's more range. But certainly hold the shin for a long time. And if you just can't ever grab the foot, it's still good. But try to get yourself to be more upright. Really press through the left foot, and then you're bringing your right foot down. And we're going to come down onto the hands and knees, just to give you some variety. I'm on my hands, I'm on my knees. So my hands are turned out, and then with my hands turned out, I'm going to push through my hands and widen my shoulders, so widen my back. And then I'm going to let my chest move down in between my arms. This is different than a cat-cow. I'm going to push, widen my back. These are scapula push-ups. And then I'm going to let that relax. And then I'm going to push and widen. And say you've been doing this for a while. You want to try it with one hand. My left arm is behind my back. I'm going to let my chest move down and push, right? Letting my upper body move down and push, widen out the shoulders, and then bringing the left hand down and then bringing the right arm back behind you. So it's just good that, maybe you don't necessarily know which side is stronger. That's why I'm doing that. Push through the hand, push through the fingertips. Really drive through the knuckles of the hand. Let it relax. And then push. These are really, really helpful for like push-ups or transitions in yoga, like what we call chaturanga to up dog, those transitions. And then bring the right hand down. So if you can, turn your hands back towards your knees. Just stretch out the forearm, stretch out the wrist, move the weight around. Maybe your hands aren't turned out all the way or turned back all the way. It's okay. So you're like, I love turning my hands in. Of course, do it this way. But like I said earlier in class, like variety is really, really good. You don't want to fall in love with just some, certain techniques are obviously good to do all the time, but there are definitely things that you should be cycling, not doing possibly every day, right? I'm going to bring my hands down underneath my shoulders. I'm going to widen my shoulders, widen my back. I'm going to come up into plank. So I'm really trying to get my tailbone to be down and my abdomen to being in. So I'm pushing through the hands. And I'm going to take it up into a down dog. And I'm going to pedal my legs out if I need to move. But if you're flexible enough, you could certainly have your legs straight. That's a great thing to do.
just not available for everyone. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come forward and through my arms. So I'm going to come forward into an up dog. So my glutes are engaged. My abdomen it's strong. It's not incredibly tight, but there's an influence there. And then I'm going back up into a down dog. I'm going to do that one more time. So coming forward, coming through. Use your fingertips. If it hurts your back, you put a block underneath your thighs above your knees. It's a very good way. It's like doing cobra without coming all the way down, right? Then you can go back up into down dog. And then come forward into plank and come down onto your elbows, come down onto your forearms. And the same thing, try to get your abdomen to be involved by squeezing your butt. So think that there's a block touching your thighs, there's a block touching your pelvis, there's a block touching your abdomen, your ribs, and you're pushing through your arms. Really push through the arms, and you'll feel your back widen. So lightly lower the knees, lower the thighs, and you're just in a Sphinx position. So I'm down in this low back bend, which I was saying about the block is it takes the pressure off your lower back. And for those of you that have your arms and say you're like, I don't know, this isn't right. Move your arms more forward, move your arms out wide, right? Find an angle that your arms should be in. And that's why I always say it's not wise to just use a yoga magazine or a book to practice, because they'll say you have to do it this way. And people will do that for years, and it might be like the worst thing for someone. So you got to find, again, what's really healthy for yourself. So just look high over the right shoulder. Look high over the left, right? You could, as you become more aware, you see when you need to use more effort. If you don't know, almost do it like where you're a bit lazy and you can still benefit, right? I'm going to look over the right again, and then I'm going to look over the left. And then I'm bringing myself down. I'm going to take my arms beside me, and I'm going to lift everything up off the floor. So I'm lifting myself up. My shoulder blades are moving in. Right? I'm elevating myself up. I could get my feet together, and then that would help in strengthening my bum, which is really, really good for stability. You need strong glutes for so many different things. So it's very good to strengthen your posterior. So bring yourself down, have your hands underneath your shoulders or more forward, and just come up a little bit higher than, say, it's Sphinx. And just, see if that's the right height. You could always be lower, right? I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to bring myself up again. And then, when I do come up, I'm personally trying to keep my hips down so that I'm having more extension in my upper back. But let's say you've had a history of herniation, right? Or you just have really poor posture in the lower back. It's okay if the hips are up, but that extra leverage in the lower back might actually be good for you. But for me, it's I really need more extension to my upper back. So that's why I'm keeping my hips down. So I'm going to bring myself forward, bringing myself down, and then having my hands just underneath my shoulders, I'm going to push into the floor with my hands. So I just want to feel my shoulders. So you're not moving, right? But you're still getting stronger. It's just like if you had a big heavy weight and you couldn't lift the weight, you're pushing and you're still getting stronger. You're not moving, but you're pushing. And that connection can help eventually lift you up. So if I couldn't push up into a push-up, I would push for about 5 seconds, and then I'd let it relax, and then I'd push for about 5 seconds, and then I'd let it relax. And then as my shoulders get stronger, my hands get stronger, I could lift up into a plank, right? I could push into the top of a push-up, right? And then I'm going to come down on my knees, and I'm going to sit back towards my feet. And I say this all the time. When people are doing this and I'm teaching them, they sit back too far. You don't sit back more than you can handle. It's not, I wish it was just sit back all the way and you get all the benefits that you've been looking for.
you have to be a little bit more selective initially, even if you've been practicing for a while, right? So you can untuck the toes, you can sit back onto the feet. There's many, many bones of the feet. And the foot should be able to move. You know, it's obvious the hand moves, right? It's so easy to move the hand for most people. But your foot should move almost as well as your hands do. It's just you have to really work at it. So come where your hands are just underneath your shoulders. I'm going to push through my hands. I'm going to stay on the tops of my feet. So I'm going to try to lift my knees off the floor. So push strong and lift up into this rounded position. So stretch out your back. This is, an active position, but, you're probably not rounding your back enough daily. You know, if you had osteoporosis or some sort of spinal condition, there's an exception to that. But most people aren't really rounding their back at all. And it can, affect the spine where the spine gets weak, it gets arthritic. So I'm rounding my back daily. I'm doing various things with my spine as well. So come up into down dog. Lift the knees up off the floor. Reach down through the heels of your feet. Really drive through the feet. And then walk your feet into the middle of your mat and walk your hands back towards your feet so that you're in a standing forward bend. Now I'm purposely going to come off the floor with my hands so I'm rounding my back. If I feel any negativity in my lower back, be here, elbows above the knees. But like I'm saying about rounding your spine, it's something that it's really neglected. Unless you're doing plow every day and rabbit, those are great poses. But like I said, most people aren't rounding their back enough. So I'm rounding to purposely stretch out my upper back, right? And then I'm going to roll myself up to standing, and then I'm up. And maybe you only need one, but I'm going to do this a couple more times. So I'm bringing my chin in my chest. Say you're like, hey, I really want to learn plow. I really want to learn shoulder stand. You have to do a practice more like what I'm doing here so that you can eventually prepare the body to do that. So I'm going to bring my chin in my chest, my exhale, rounding, bending my knees if I need to, right? Such a great stretch of the back. Right? I don't feel it at all in my lower back. It's all through my upper back. Right? And maybe you're standing, but when you're down low, you can organize your feet. Right? You could do a lot of good things for your feet. I'm going to round, pushing down through the heels, rounding to the upper back. I may stay in an angle that I need more than others. Right? Like right here is a very good angle for me. And pushing through the feet, bringing myself back up. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm bringing my chin into my chest, coming down, rounding, right? Pushing through, like we were using the big toes earlier in class, bend the knees, be in a position again that serves you. Lower isn't necessarily better. It's really not, especially in this technique. Push through the feet, roll yourself up. You're up into standing. And then what you're going to do is bring the tailbone down and then stick it out. And then just bring it down. So down is really gentle traction. You could use more effort if you need it. But take the arms to an overhead position, hook the thumbs, and just bend the knees and bring the tailbone down. So just in an extended position with the arms. Push through the feet. And then pressing through the feet. Come up on the toes, lift the heels off the floor. And then you can lower the heels. You can bring the arms back down beside you. And then we're just going to come to the floor. I'm going to do some things on the floor in terms of stretching your body out. So once you come down, have your legs just out in front of you, where your knees are bent. Have your hands underneath your shoulders. Push through the hands, broaden your shoulders, broaden your back, and lift your hips off the floor. Elevate your hips. I'm moving around on purpose, right, to manipulate my hands, my wrist. I'm moving forward in space. I'm trying to find angles that I actually need more leverage in. Maybe it's one shoulder more than the other. Then bring the hips down. And then as you bring the hips down, so I gotta get something. So I'm coming back down. So when I'm coming back down, there was an alarm. So I'm gonna push through the hands, broadening my back. So this is a great position just here. So you have rounded shoulders. Do this 10 times. Hold the position for 5 seconds, let it relax, pull it back. Really basic, right? But push through the hands, push through the feet, and lift the hips up. And I like coming in and out of poses for people because then they're not like gripping, they're not holding too much. But I'm elevating, I'm moving forward with my hips, but I'm trying to keep my hips up. I'm not, I'm not coming forward excessively with losing that. So I'm going to bring my hips down, and then as I bring my hips down, I'm going to stretch out your shoulders a little bit. I'm going to bring my hips forward towards my feet. And for you, maybe it's just a little bit, right? Again, more isn't necessarily better. If your intent is to heal, you want to feel amazing, you really don't have to go super far. If you're going for aesthetics, you really want more range, you're definitely going to have to put yourself in positions that are uncomfortable, which is worth it. It's worth it to go further, but you gotta understand what your body's actually capable of. What type of capacity are you able to take on? So I'm going to bring my hips back in space, and then I'm going to have my right leg forward. I'm going to reach for my foot and see how I can get my armpit, my knee together. I'm going to take my foot up off the floor, and I'm going to push my foot forward into my hand, right? And then as my foot is being pulled back in space, trying to eventually get my knee to fit inside of my armpit. So for you, it might not happen yet, but if I can, I'm going to reach across with just my right hand, and I'm going to stretch my right leg forward in space so my left hand is down. So I'm driving my leg down to the floor and forward, just to stretch out the back of the leg. There's a lot of good ways that you can stretch out your legs without forward bending. So I'm just going back to here again. I'm going to hold the foot again on the outside. I could hold it with both hands. I'm bringing it forward, like an easy compass position. And then I'm going back into getting the armpit and the knee together, which is really great for posture. And then bringing that foot down. So I'm going to go over on the other side just so that you can see it better. So I'm pulling my right leg back in space. I'm trying to get the armpit and the knee together. I'm pushing that foot forward into the hands. I'm elevating myself up. And then I could just extend it forward to some degree, but I could also hold the foot with my left hand outside of the foot. Then my right hand could be down if I needed for balance, right? You could put yourself up against a wall. That's a good way. Your leg could be elevated on something, and then you could use your hand to keep the leg up. There's a lot of creative ways you could do this. I'm going to go back to bringing the armpit and the knee together, so pulling it back in space. I still do a lot of pulling in terms of strength training, so this is really great in stretching out my back. So I'm going to hold my foot. I'm stretching my right leg forward in space. My right hand is down. So the back of my leg is obviously getting stretched out. Lift yourself up away from the floor, and then go back into getting the armpit and the knee together. So I'm trying to get my arm above my shin. So if you're shorter in your torso, it's going to be more difficult to achieve, but well worth it. When you're watching television, basic thing you could do. So you can bring the foot down, and then when you bring it down, go back to having the knees bent, have the hands underneath the shoulders, just pull the shoulders back in space, lift yourself up again, move through your knuckles, through your fingertips, push down, push strong, and you'll feel the effects in the shoulders. Really basic thing, but will help with your straight arm strength. So I'm going to bring my hips down. As I bring my hips down, I'm going to sit up against the wall just because I have this wall, but you could do it without a wall. You could sit in front of a piece of furniture, and then when you're up against the wall, have your butt up against the wall. So your butt's up against the wall, kind of like what we did with triangle, but we're going out in this side position, but with my hand. So my right hand is out to the right, and then I'm moving back up against the wall. Now I'm going to push, if I need to, into my thigh. I can have my arm up against the wall. I can take my left hand behind my head. So just moving back in space. Now I'm going to get lower onto my elbow, but I could just do that for a couple seconds, right? You know, people, they just go all the way in, like, you know, all or nothing. But then they only come out like at the very end and they're like, it's just too much. So I like coming into the pose, but then also coming out. And when you do it this way, you go a little bit further. You know, it's I like long holds. It's very calming, very soothing, very good for your nervous system. But if you're really wanting to go further or you want more depth, coming in and out of poses works really well. So bring yourself up. I'm not going to say it works better, but it works really well. You can recross the legs, and then my hips are back up against the wall. My left arm is going out to the left. My right arm is going out to the right. I'm moving up against the wall however much I need it. So if you're like, oh, I can't go back, right? Don't go back. Go back when you need it. But the hand behind the head is really nice for the shoulder and the rib cage. But you can get lower, right, for a few seconds. You can come up. You can come down. It's okay if your right hip's coming off the floor, right? If it's excessively coming up, I'd stay here, you know, because you're probably not, just everything's moving in the same plane, right? Not that that's terrible. It's just to give yourself a little bit more of a stretch. Then taking the right arm out to the right, and then bringing yourself back up. And then once you're here, you're going to have your feet together and your knees wide. So initially, just have your knees out wide. Support your knees with blocks, of course, if that's what you need. But just get the big toe mounds to push together. So remember earlier in the class, we were in that wall sit and we were lifting the toes, pushing down to the big toe mound, and then we were getting the big toes to touch. You could do that a couple times. But just pushing up against the wall, pushing into the thighs, pushing the thighs out. So it looks like I'm just pushing down, but I'm actually pushing my thighs in the direction of my knees. You can certainly push all the way down. When I have support up against the wall, I like just a steady pressure, but then just let it relax. And then you can push down. I'm close to the knees, but never on the knees. You could use weights. You know, it's not I would start with something, you know, nothing more than 10 pounds to start with. You know, the tighter you are, the more leverage you can receive. The more flexible you are, you got to be careful with how much leverage you're using. You know, because it's much easier to do too much. Someone that's really tight, you don't want to be reckless, but you could use more leverage. You know, like when I work with people, really tight people, I'm not like applying too much pressure, but I am applying more than I would with someone that's more flexible. You can push the heels of the feet together. You can widen out through the thighs, getting yourself nice and upright. And this is a good practice. Just, you know, this, there's a time when I was doing this for, 5-10 minutes a day. It's, the adductors are really weak, and that's why the knees are so high. All right, and you can sit cross-legged. Just have another alarm. Sorry about that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to end in a seated position. So I hope this class had helped you. You can always leave me a message like, hey, what would I do in this situation? It's not working for me in some way. That's what I really like about a practice, is that you can make it your own. You don't have to make it look like mine or someone else's. There's so many great ways to practice. So have a beautiful weekend. I have a class tomorrow morning, and that's at 9:30 Eastern time, and that's a 10 a.m. class. It's through Zoom, so if you'd like a live class in that way that I could see you practice, you'd register on my website. It's jonwittyoga.com. So you could help me in donating if you'd like. If you can't afford it, that's what I'm offering, is free yoga to people. I really like that. I can help people around the world at this time. But if you'd like to make a donation, my Venmo is Jon Witt Yoga, and my PayPal is Jon Witt Yoga. But you could also help me by sharing my information, letting people know what I'm offering, and I'd like to help more and more people, again, especially at this time. All right, take care of yourself. Hope to see you soon.